and joined now by Brian Howell, covers Colorado for the Boulder Daily Camera. He's here with us on 365 Sports. Brian, it's been kind of quiet out of Boulder. I had the picture of the turf yesterday. I reached out to you and said, okay, what is the difference? And you told me, is that because Deion's been kind of out of pocket as he tries to get himself healthy, or something else?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but I think it's also just the time of year that it is. I mean, there's not a ton going on with the Buffs right now, and their roster actually seems a little more settled this time of year than it has been the last 2 years at this time. So I think that's a big part of it. And but yeah, Coach Prime has not been around for a while. He's been down at his home in Texas as he tries to get healthy, and nobody really knows what's going on with him. But I'm sure part of it is him not being around. But yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty normal this time of year for them.
Brian, along the offensive line, I mean, they had the big loss at center, obviously, but they brought in a guard, tackle, another center. Do you think that position with Jordan Seaton as the anchor will improve enough? Because as good as Caden Salter and Juju Lewis might be, I don't know if they can quite be as magical without a running game as Shedeur was.
Yeah, I think it's better. We thought so last year, and they were slightly better last year than the year before. I think this is a better group than last year. I don't think it's going to be, one of the top offensive lines in the Big 12 or anything like that, but I think it's better. I mean, they brought in some guys that, are experienced and, have got experience at high levels. I mean, Zy Chrysler has started at Illinois the last couple of years, and Xavier Hill was an all-conference guard at Memphis this last year. So I think they've got some guys that are pretty solid. Zarian McGill, even though it's been in a group of 5 level, he's been a 3-year starter at center. So I think they got some quality players that should help out. I mean, you're right that they're not going to be as magical, maybe make up for some things like Shedeur. I will say though, if it's Caden Salter, there's probably more of that. There definitely is more of that running element that he brings than Shedeur, and so maybe he helps that running game a little more than Shedeur would have.
Brian, just what's it like? I guess it's a small sample size of only just a few months at this point because all of the draft coverage and everything, but does it feel like there's a drastically different year and just kind of feel upon Colorado football with the lack of the Sanders boys, even though, obviously the head coach is the same and all that? It just feels like that was the start of a very certain era there for Colorado, and that's going to be some big faces now missing, Travis Hunter included.
Yeah, I don't feel like we've had a chance to miss them yet because so much of the offseason has been about them because of the draft and things like that. I think it's gonna feel weird. Maybe when we get to Big 12 Media Day in a couple of weeks in Dallas, when there's no Travis or Shedeur. Well, Travis is never gone, but there's no Shedeur or things like that. That's gonna be weird. When we get into fall camp, it'll be weird. And when you watch the well-off media videos and not seeing Shedeur and Shiloh and Travis being such a big part of those videos, that's kind of weird. So it's definitely going to have a different feel.
Well, they have stars, but we just don't know yet who they are. You mentioned Seaton, the offensive lineman, right? The way they play, the style they play, depending on the quarterback play. Who will some of them be outside the quarterbacks if that works out?
Welcome, guys. You're at the 10th Mountain Whiskey and Spirit Company tasting room here. So we're located in basically central Colorado in the Rocky Mountains. Our 2 flagship whiskeys are our rye whiskey and our bourbon. Our rye whiskey is our most awarded spirit. Our bourbon's our best seller. We're very proud of it. We think you're going to love it too. If you don't like it, send it back to us. We'll drink it for you.
10th Mountain Whiskey and Spirit Company, Colorado.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some colleagues we've talked about, well, who's the face of this team now? And like, well, is it your left tackle? That's kind of a weird face of the team. Or, is it Juju Lewis, who may even be the backup quarterback this year? So those might be the big faces. The stars, I think, remain to be seen. I think there's some good talent on here that just has not proven it yet. And, I think a Draylon Miller is a really good receiver. I think he's going to be a stud. And, if he's not an all-conference guy this year, I think next year he will be. We've talked a lot about him as their Deebo Samuel type because he can play out of the backfield. He's a receiver. He actually made 2 starts at running back last year. Omarion Miller is a stud if he can stay healthy. He had a big game against Kansas State. No, it was Baylor last year. Had the big game against Baylor. If you remember that touchdown he had before the half where he looked like he was going to get tackled, stayed up and then went 50 yards for a touchdown. But then he got injured a couple weeks later and missed the rest of the year. So they have some star potential players like you said, we just don't know who they're going to be yet. I think DJ McKinney on defense, I think is one. I think he's going to be a really good corner.
I think the reason why some people don't remember the play before the half, is because the way that game went into overtime. That's still the dominant thought of that game.
Yeah, I'm not sure many people remember much beyond the last play of regulation and overtime. That was quite a game last year. But that play with Omari Miller was a huge one that a lot of people forget. But that was as big as any play, because I think Baylor was kind of rolling at that time, and that touchdown by Omari Miller, really kind of stemmed the tide a little bit and gave the Buffs a little momentum going into halftime.
Brian, one of the transfers I'm curious your opinion on, Hakeem Williams was Mike Norvell's only 5-star at FSU. It did not work out for him. I do not think that was his fault, really. But, I mean, he did get passed by some transfers in the spring this year. It comes on. Has he stepped into a situation, because they do use 4 and 5 wide receivers pretty equally among other teams comparatively, that this is something that will allow him to live up to his potential?
I think the opportunity is absolutely there for a guy like that, he's got that star potential. There are those receivers. I mentioned Draylon Omarion. Joseph Williams comes over from Tulsa. He was the AAC Freshman of the Year this last year. So there are some guys that have proven it. Hakeem Williams, though, might have been the highest recruited guy out of high school among all of them. And so there's definitely that opportunity there. And, Coach Prime gives those opportunities to guys like that. And so if he steps up and does what he's supposed to do, he will have every opportunity. He's certainly got the ability to be a big-time weapon for them.
So I think Smokey mentioned the turf change at the top. What was the reasoning behind that? It seems like a lot of people are going to grass, but I don't know. It might be the weather out there in Colorado. And just in line with that, what other kind of sprucing up, or has there been anything else that's of note, maybe for fans there, that Colorado's been active in getting done this offseason?
Well, the big reason for the turf, and when I talked to them about it, they said that it was the ability to host a college football playoff game in December in Boulder. But really, the big reason is they can host concerts there at Folsom Field. And as you guys know, with the way college sports is changing, they got to come up with money to pay players, and frankly, they got to come up with money to pay Coach Prime. Between the $20.5 million to players and another $5 million a year to Coach Prime, that's $25 million a year CU's never had to pay before. This allows them to actually host concerts where there's not going to be that it's not going to tear up the grass and they can't play a football game a week later. There's actually they're trying to set up concerts during some of their off weeks, things like that. So this gives them the ability to host more concerts throughout the year and not tear up the grass. Those are big revenue streams. The last few years they've hosted some concerts in July, and no, those are big revenue streams for them. This allows them to do that a lot more. We're going to see a lot more events at Folsom Field, I believe, non-football events.
Brian, does the bowl game and how that ended, getting thumped by BYU, come into play at all?
I don't think so. There hasn't really been a lot of talk about that. And I think a large part of it is because it's such a new team, and so many of those key players from last year, aren't a part of this anymore. And so I don't think that's going to be it. Maybe it'll be a topic as we get closer to the season, but it really hasn't been talked about. I mean, throughout the spring, there was very little talk about that bowl game at all, other than, that was a nice season. Let's build on it.
Brian, what do you think that people don't know about this Colorado team in the post-Hunter Shedeur era that they'll find out this year, or that will be maybe the story?
Yeah, well, as I look at some of the preview magazines that are coming out so far, and I see where the Buffs are picked fairly low, I think people are going to be surprised that this team is better than they think. And I don't think this is a great team. I mean, they will tell you they're better than last year, which I find hard to believe. I need to see it before I believe they're going to be better than a Shedeur and Travis led team. But I think they're going to be a pretty good team, one that is in a bowl game and surprises some people. I think that it's going to be a team that, is salty on defense, even though they lost a lot of guys there. There's still some talent there, and I think they're going to run the football more. I don't know who's going to be their lead guy, but I think they're going to run the ball a bit more than they have the last couple of years.
Well, they need to, right? They need to also to help with Salter and whatever else they do with Lewis at quarterback. They need to help. They've been trying to do that. They really have. So
I will say I don't know if they've tried as much as honestly. I mean, they've talked about trying, but those in the media, we talk about, like, are they really trying? I mean, they keep saying it, but then they'll run the ball a few times in the first quarter, and then that's about it. So I think they're going to try more this year. I'll say that.
Well, yeah, and they even if they can toss it around and throw for a lot of yards, and who knows how good they'll be, it's just part of you got to have some sort of a threat to be able to do that, and now also late in the game to be able to milk the clock and run it down if you get the ball and the lead at the same time. What are your thoughts and expectations about? With all the changes in names, they'll have some, as we mentioned earlier, that eventually rise to prominence. Where are they because remember last year, Arizona State was picked dead last. Colorado was probably around 10, 12, 13, whatever. And some of the schools like Utah and Oklahoma State blew a tire. Where do you expect Colorado to be when the media polls released?
I think they're going to be around 10 or 12. I mean, when I look at the preview magazines, that's about where they are. I think they're going to be in that 10 to 12 range. I'd be surprised if they're in that upper half of the league. And I base a lot of it on last year. I mean, they were so low last year. It was funny to me that the media picked Travis as defensive player of the year in the preseason and Shedeur the first team quarterback, but the team way down at the bottom, like, well, how are you going to have the best quarterback and the best defensive player and be so low? That told me that the media viewed Colorado as 2 stars and not a whole lot else. And now those 2 stars are gone. So I think that a lot of people are going to look at Colorado as not having a whole lot, and they're going to pick him around that 10, 12 mark. I wouldn't be surprised if they're even lower than that, maybe 13. So I think the expectations outside of Boulder are going to be pretty low.
I'm sure he will. How much do you think that Deion would enjoy being a little engine that could a little bit without that mass? I mean, like, take Shedeur out of it. Travis Hunter alone, massive star power. They don't have that necessarily, but the parts could be better than the whole, or whatever that term is, another time around.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, one of the reasons he's back is that he wants to prove he can still coach without his son and without Travis Hunter. And frankly, if they get to a bowl game, that probably won't meet their expectations. But let's put this in perspective with CU. If they get to a bowl game this year, that's 2 years in a row. The last coach to do that at CU was Gary Barnett, who was here 20 years ago. So it's been a long time since CU's been to back-to-back bowl games, and he'll hang his hat on that, and they should. That he'd be the first coach in over 20 years to get them to back-to-back bowls, and I think that's going to be a big driving force for him.
Coach McCartney, of course, who passed away back earlier this year. There's going to be the statue. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. Is that going to be already up, or are they raising funds to do that during the season?
It's not up yet. I believe it's built. I'm not sure, but I can't remember which game they're going to do, but they're going to unveil it at one of the home games this year. I don't know which one it is. I don't think they've announced it yet, but it's going to be unveiled sometime this fall.
Anything else, guys? Nope. Appreciate it. Brian, thank you very much. Good to see you, my friend. Have a great
bet.
day.
Anytime.
Yep,
Thanks.
we will. Brian Howell from the Boulder Daily Camera on the Buffaloes.